You guys, Enter the Stars. We're not going to be on here too long tonight. Just wanted to come on here onto the main channel, do a quick live show. As you can see, I'm blocked from my own live stream, which is another reason why we're not going to be on here long. Because basically, the live stream, I cannot even comment in my own live stream. I'd let you guys know that I was going to be on in a few minutes, and this has happened every single time I've gone live on this main channel. So something weird's going on. Also, I tried to share this video on Blogger, which is what I promised that I would do. And I'm locked out of Blogger. I'm actually locked out of Facebook as well. That's why I haven't been posting over there. I can access it through my phone, but I cannot access it through my laptop. So something weird is happening. Okay. Now, I believe it's intentional, but there could be a logical explanation. I've tried clearing the cookies and all that stuff, and it's just not working. But I wanted to talk about this topic tonight because it's something that interests me and fascinates me. And of course, there's no proof of this, but it's something we can talk about. And what brought this to my attention was the fact that, I started thinking about all these celebrities and what would be their incentive to basically sell their soul to the devil? What carrot is the devil holding up for these people? We also know that for everything that God does, there is an alternate opposite image of that the devil creates. So if God has his heaven, then you can imagine that the devil is going to have his counterpart to that heaven, which is he's the ruler of this world. So there's got to be something he's offering these people to make them basically sell out. And the amazing thing is what you see is you see this theme going along with all these elite, in which they basically they just decide that they're going to not really believe in quote unquote God, and they're bold about it, and they lead the masses astray. This is a common theme of people that make it to the top. None of them are like holy or godly people, and they don't even proclaim God. I mean, there's some people proclaim God, and yeah, they have sin in their life, but they're trying. It's a process. But these people don't even proclaim the name of God or his son once they get past this glass ceiling, so to speak. So I began to wonder about this. I began wondering about some of these celebrities over the decades that we've actually heard about and talked about that have passed away. Okay. And I think about some of what they represent. I think about the 27 Club, when people are dying at 27 years old. Are they really dying? I mean, at these funerals, can you actually really see the person in the casket? And of course, we know what they're capable of in terms of Hollywood magic. What are the wax figures really? Are they using these wax figures as fakes of the people in the casket? And when you start to put all these puzzle pieces together, an amazing scenario plays out where these people it's very possible that these people might not be dead at all, but that they could be going somewhere. We're going to look at a couple of those celebrities tonight that just popped in the top of my head and look at some of the imagery and symbolism that occurred on the screen in their life that could basically suggest that they could possibly have gone somewhere else. Now, we talked a lot on this channel about portals, and we know that these volcanoes are basically hotbeds of activity for like UFOs, which we've pretty much come to the conclusion that those are spirits and demonic entities. But the connection a lot of people didn't make is that these places could also be portals to hell. And for some reason, alchemically, these areas are conducive to skipping through different phases of reality and in different areas of the earth, possibly holes in the earth. And then it begins to make sense. Once you look at the big picture of how this world is controlled by the devil, which is what we're told, then you begin to look at the big picture of this and you begin to understand that, wow, it is possible that since the beginning of the discovery of the greater world, that these secret societies, which we know go back thousands of years, could have had the knowledge of areas on Earth that we don't know about. Think about this for a second. If you were an elite person in 900 AD or 1100 AD, when they started sending boats out to explore, Columbus, Vasco da Gama, all of these explorers, what was the real incentive of these elite to spend basically incalculable amounts of money to send these people off into the void? Now, you remember these elite were surrounded by these people, large populations of people began to develop. And there were things such as Black Plague and violence. There's a lot of violence back then. The main goal of the elite was to control the population, to basically make them conform to being slaves, okay, keeping them at the lowest level possible because they were in fear. The elite were in fear of these people rising up and putting all the puzzle pieces together. So, what would you do if you were an elite person and you were evil and you wanted to maintain power over people? You would start looking for new places. You would start looking for new places to hide if you had to. And you might spend immense amounts of money and treasure to do so, using the treasure that you got from the people that you ruled over. It wouldn't be too hard to put a bunch of people on boats and send them out into the abyss, send them out into the waves and the oceans and the high seas to try to find a large continent, an undiscovered continent, that then they can then not put on any maps and hide it for themselves. And think about the vast areas that there are around the world in the South Pacific with weather that is very nice, probably subtropical. And you go, okay, Casey, well, that's a conspiracy of all conspiracies. Well, think about it for a minute. We've talked a lot about trees being portals, and Mark and I are going to be doing a live show probably on Monday, and we probably won't do it here because obviously something's wrong with my live streaming capabilities here, as well as I don't believe they're sending out notifications for these live shows on this main channel here. So something's going on. I don't know how to even fix it because there's nobody at YouTube to talk to, but we're going to do it on the backup channel probably. But you think about this and how this could work, and it's very easy to come up with the scenario where the elite are promising these people that they're using as puppets to guide all of us off a cliff like lemmings, and then telling that person, hey, look, when you get to a certain point in your life and you're going to need hip replacement, can't dance anymore, you can't be a Pied Piper anymore, lead people off into destruction, we'll send you to the island. Now, there's a movie about the island. Let's pull that up. It's all about these people like to operate in opposites. It's basically this place where they build these clones, and they're all in this place called the island, okay? And basically, they're clones of movie stars and models and famous people who have enough money to basically have a clone made of them, so that if they, for instance, want to have a child without really having a child, they just make their clone have a child, right? And then the child, they can just fake it in the real world, put in a baby bump, a fake baby bump, and then the actual, the real child, then they bring it out when it's born, and then they just kill the clone, okay? Now, this movie is a crazy movie. I've decoded this movie several times, and it seems like every time I watch it, there's more and more stuff. Basically, the clones realize that they're clones and they escape. And that's what this movie is about. They escape into the real world, and then they find that the real world sucks, right? And they're kind of like children because they basically make them so that they're dumbed down and they don't have very high education. That way they can control them better. Now, not only is this a microcosm of our world, we're basically being used by the elite, but also what you have is a weird mirror because I believe the island, everything that the island is the opposite of what the elite island is. So the elite island are the real people where they go, and instead of being there until they're in their mid years, which is what is in the movie The Island, because they usually are killed off before they reach any kind of maturity because their counterpart, their real counterpart, needs parts off of them for liver transplants and all that stuff. But on the elite island, they probably go there when they're older. You see how this everything's a mirror with these people. And instead of being locked in a facility and told they're going to go to paradise, which is what it is in the movie Island, the elite island, they have wide open spaces and they're already in paradise. You see how that works? You can oftentimes find the truth with these people by looking at the opposite mirror. They tell you what they're doing. This is the landscape as these clones emerge out of the island, this underground facility where they're stored. Here's what the underground facility looks like. They all escape. It's kind of like a Logan's Run scenario, if any of you have seen that movie from the 70s. And look, they escape out and it's all barren. Whereas I believe the elite island is like very lush and vegetation is probably in the South Pacific somewhere. My guess is they found a large subcontinent, not quite the size of Australia, but maybe a third that size or something. So you're saying, okay, see, how can you think that? Well, you have to look at flight patterns and flight paths. Where are all the planes flying? Where are they not flying? If you look carefully, you could probably see some kind of a void. Okay. A place where no planes are really allowed to fly. And they could have even adjusted the world map to where it's hidden. Some people think Antarctica, but I don't think so. I think it's something else. I think it's another area, and it's probably an island not connected to any continents, because that way they could defend it, they could hide it, they could keep it a secret by simply not telling anyone. And if anyone tried to, reveal this, no one would believe them. I mean, look at how hard of a time we have here on YouTube with all the proof that we've shown people of stuff, and just people are just not going to believe certain stuff. And so imagine some elite person says, I'm going to disclose something, and there's actually a secret island. He'll get laughed off so bad, like people will not believe him. So let's look at some of this stuff, because some of these actors who, let's look at Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson hit a point in his career where his body was in a lot of pain. He was living most of his life in this hyperbaric chamber and sleep-induced comas to help assist in his body in healing, which there's some irony to that because he had this skin condition called vitiligo, and it was a melanin condition of the skin. And how did he die? He died with basically in a melatonin in sleep state, because when you're asleep, you have high serum levels of melatonin, which we've shown on this channel actually fight cancer. So you have this weird man in the mirror juxtaposition of Michael Jackson's life, the skin, melanin, and then the melatonin and him dying in his sleep. But here's the strange thing about Michael Jackson. He self-proclaimed, called himself Peter Pan. Okay. And he said he loves climbing in trees. And there was a documentary on Michael Jackson, this was later on in his life, where he told the interviewer that he loved Peter Pan. And he climbs this tree, okay? And he just sits there and he's looking out and he's like, I love to climb this tree. And he invites the interviewer to climb the tree with him. And he's up there looking around. Now, we've done a lot of research on these trees and what they really mean. And that's what Mark and I will be talking about in our live show on Monday. And I believe these trees are portals. And I believe that the garden that was full of trees in the Garden of Eden, that these trees were portals to other worlds. Think about it. If you were God and you were to build a Garden of Eden, and in the book of Genesis says there were many trees in the garden, but do not eat of certain trees. Do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Well, what was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? This was a portal, I believe, which brought Adam and Eve into this realm of good and evil, which is where we are stuck now, where we are born, grow old, and die, but we have a choice to do evil or good. We have the knowledge of evil or good, versus a different dimension where we got a governor on, or we have some kind of a mechanism by which we don't know evil. Therefore, we don't die. We are with God, you see. And we see remnants of these trees from the garden that were all cut off all over the earth. Is my belief that these are these column basalt structures. And they're all over the earth. And they're almost always stacked straight up and down. They're always cut off, of course. But I believe all these places used to be trees of the garden. This one looks like it fell. This looks like a fallen tree stump. And this is how Adam and Eve used to teleport through into different worlds, and they would just play. And some people go, oh, who would want to go to heaven? It'd be boring. Oh, what would you do all day? Well, could you imagine being in the garden and getting to go and teleport through all these different portals into different worlds with different frames of reality? You know, Mark and I are going to look at the word ohel, which means tent. But the word ohel and Noah in the tent means something far different than you could ever imagine. The word ohel also means a frame of reality. So when Noah was in the tent, well, this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to look at the book of Jasher. We're going to talk about superhuman strength obtained by wearing the skin that was handed down from Adam to Enoch to Methuselah to Noah, and how that skin was stolen by Ham, and how that is really what was meant that Noah was naked. His skin was stolen. Now, I don't want to steal the thunder for that show because it's going to be a fascinating show. And that's going to be on the other channel, as I said. Now, I want to pause and give a shout out to A Plain Truth, who just uploaded a video on neurolinguistic programming. You can't make this stuff up, you guys. Now, a couple of you went over there and tried to say something about it. You're like, how can you upload a video on neurolinguistic programming when you just defended the two neurolinguistic programmers that tried to infiltrate the truth community? And of course, he called me a Christian bigot and some other stuff, but we're going to put that behind us. And in fact, I've taken down all of the videos on those people because to me, it's just ridiculous now. It's gotten into the chaos. It's got to be. I mean, how can you upload a video on NLP when you just stood up for some people that were, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So I pulled everything down. We've got bigger fish to fry, you guys. We made our stand. I wanted to put all that out there, and I did. So now it's over, and I don't need to even leave those videos up because people have made their choice. Okay. I'm a little shocked at the choice that many people made, but they've made their choice. And so we did our due diligence and warned everyone. So I believe these are portals. These column basalt structures, I believe, are portals. These were the trees of the garden that were cut down. We're not allowed to get out of this realm. We're stuck here with the devil. We have a savior, we have a way out, but few find the narrow gate, which is the narrow gate is like the tree of life, back to Christ. Okay, you have to believe in him to be saved, and few find that. In fact, and I'll give you another little teaser on Noah in the tent. In the film Noah, the last scene where Noah is in the tent drunk is filmed in Iceland at a place where the column basalt is. I'll say that again. The last scene in the film Noah, where he's in the tent drunk, is filmed where at a column basalt area of Iceland, and you can see it in the film. And I couldn't believe that I missed it the first time. But as we're putting all this together, these are puzzle pieces. Now I know the film Noah is full of disinformation, but here's the tactic that they use. They use bits and pieces of the truth to tell the lie. That's one thing they do. And then what else they do is they're in a rush to fictionalize the truth. So they insert truth in fiction stories or fiction movies. And then what happens is your mind plays a trick on you and it says, oh, wow, since you saw that in a movie, it's not real. And in fact, it is real. And so don't get discouraged when you see bits and pieces of truth in films. Don't just write it off. That's exactly what they want you to do. It's a mind trick. It's like a Jedi mind trick. So I believe these trees are really portals. So when you think about Michael Jackson climbing around in the trees, all of a sudden it takes on a whole new dimension. Him wanting to be a child forever, him basically doing his part to lead people towards the agenda of the elite, and then maybe signing some kind of a contract to basically be a king here on earth, to be a king here and to get all the spoils of that kingship, which could include time and the rest of your days on an island. And who knows what kinds of debauchery are going on that island. All of your worst nightmares. Basically a living hell if we were there, because we are of good of heart. But for these people, it's a free-for-all with slaves and orgies and who knows. And God allows this because this is their condemnation. This is it for them. This is the end of the road. They're going to ride it till the wheels fall off. They don't want heaven. They don't want everlasting life. They'd rather get their spoils here. Now, who was the other guy I wanted to show you guys? Prince. We're always talking about an elevator. And he, quote unquote, died in an elevator. But did he really? Prince had hip replacement surgery. He was helping to push the agenda of the elite for most of his life. Some argue that at the end of this life he changed. Maybe he did. I don't know. We're just speculating at this point. But what if he's not really dead at all? What if this elevator, which we've also seen elevators depicted as portals? Now we have what seems to be a pattern. We have the trees as portals. We have elevators as portals. And so you get this clue. Because not only did Prince die in an elevator, Prince was in an elevator in the Muppets. Here's him right here. And there's the bear. And he goes in this elevator and he puts his hand out like, bye. And we saw the elevator as a portal depicted in certain like movie TV shows and stuff. What was the TV show that they showed the elevator as a portal? And there are other depictions of these elevators. We saw the elevators in The Shining with all of the blood. Remember? There's something about these elevators, and I believe they're portals to these alternate universes and hell. Here's an elevator depicted in Superman. What else do we have here? There was another show, you guys probably know it. You probably are screaming it at me in the chat, where they show these elevators as portals. It's a science fiction TV show. Can't remember what channel. It might have been on HBO or something. And I think there are secret unclassified documents talking about elevators to other dimensions, like experiments that they did, where you walk in the elevator and you're in one place and then you're in another place. I think also in the Adjustment Bureau. Never spell that word. Walking in and out of elevators and doors. Okay. And this goes on and on and on. And for those of you that are into elevators and understand how these have been depicted as portals, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Elevator in The Shining. Here they show the bloody elevator. So they know there's something about this stuff. And see, they don't count on anyone connecting the dots. Why do they keep depicting these elevators as these portals? In this scene, they show the twins popping out from the elevator. Just before all this blood comes out, the guy sees the twins in the hallway. That movie's creepy. So, was the elevator that Prince died in really just a cue that he really didn't die, that he teleported or went to this other dimension or this other reality or this other island somewhere? I don't know. You be the judge of that. But when you think back and how the elite have controlled all the flow of information going back thousands of years, as things started to develop, as technology started to come to market, they control everything. They control GPS. They even control what you're able to see through a telescope. They control the lens technology. That's why they only allow it to get to a certain point without being too, effective enough to see high detail on the moon. You ever think about that? Why is the technology hit a plateau when it comes to telescopes and cameras? Why can we only see to certain levels of the moon? Why can't we zoom in on a rock on the moon? You would think that technology would be there. There are nights when the moon is so bright. They have the technology to do it, but all those telescopes are highly controlled, and they never point these telescopes right at the moon. Never. You never see high resolution shots of the moon from telescopes. You only see what they want you to see. Why don't they allow the telescopes to zoom in on the flag that was supposedly planted on the moon? We should be able to take a telescope and zoom right in to the flag on the moon. Somebody should be able to do that with all of the technology we have. Why does the Hubble telescope point at the moon? Why don't any of these satellites point at the moon and give us high resolution? I'm not talking from a mile above the moon. I'm talking zoom in just like they do on Google Earth down to where you can see the top of a car. Why don't we ever get those images of the moon from space? There's a reason for that. So it's not outside the realm of possibility that these people have capped or put a glass ceiling on all technology that would be able to detect a secret continent. And sometimes we spend all this time, these entrepreneurs, and I think they're fake, most of them. These Elon Musk types who say that they're trying to figure out if the Earth is this or that, and they're challenging. I think that's all just smoke and mirrors. because some of the greatest discoveries, I think, could be found right here on Earth. Why not charter a voyage and explore all of the waters of Earth? I bet the second you try to do that, you'll be shut down so fast. Put a team of people on it, random people on a giant boat. Put a bunch of random people, do like a lottery, and let like anyone who wants to get on the boat. And it's like a lottery selection. And they basically circumnavigate the whole Earth. Why hasn't that been done yet? Rediscover what's really out there. Oh, did I lose you guys? So these are the kind of questions that I'd like to see discovered, okay? Because I believe they're hiding something from us. So, who else do we have here? Robin Williams. He was another one. He did a film about heaven, and he died early on in life. Where is he really? Robin Williams. Let's look at his film. I just call it the heaven film because I don't know. But dreams may come. And this was this world, and I'm sure if I watched this movie, there might be clues as to where, where this place is. Maybe this What Dreams May Come was really the place where all these elite go. Because these people don't believe in God, but yet they're doing movies depicting God and depicting heaven and places. So where did they really go? And they always depict a tree. Look here. Oh, there you go. I didn't know I was going to find this. Apparently, there's a purple tree in the film. Is this really a portal? I'll have to rewatch this film. I guess this is a shot from the movie. Wow. So there's a purple tree. I think this woman was his wife, and she did like artwork, if I remember correctly, in the film. And she drew this purple tree. Looks like it's weeping. So there's much more to this than meets the eye, in my opinion. I think there's much more to this. I think this is what these people aspire to. They lead us as Pied Pipers, lemmings off the cliff, and then they go on to basically celebrate with each other the deception and live the rest of their life here on earth in some kind of secret paradise. While we all suffer, we're used as their experiments and their clones so they can have longer life. Use us as slaves to mow their lawns and take care of their elderly and do all of the stuff that they, basically were slaves to them. All right, let me pop in the chat here. That's pretty much the end of what I wanted to talk about today, guys, and didn't want to keep you on here too long. Like I said, I don't have full functionality on this main channel, so luckily we didn't get inundated by trolls because there's really nothing I could do about it at this point. It's weird. How can that be? How can I be locked out of my own live stream 5 times in a row? Well, now you're starting to understand how all this works, you guys. The real channels out there doing real work are the ones with all the problems, never grow. So that's where we're at. I want to thank Rachel for standing up on the other channel and reminding people of neurolinguistic programming. She was viciously attacked, called stupid, basically. I was called a Christian bigot. Unbelievable. So thanks, Rachel. I appreciate that. People like you are the ones that make a difference. And I'm sorry that he treated you like that. It's really sad. But I'm sure you have a pretty tough skin, so hang in there. And part of the reason why I put all that away is just because of things like this. I don't want to subject you guys to this. You shouldn't have to get beat up by these people and called trolls. You're not all trolls. And be, and have to sit there and watch our Lord and Savior get re-crucified over and over again by these people and denied, because that can wear on you after a while. So I just decided to pull the plug on it so we can move on. So that's where we're at with that. I'm just reading in the chat here. Right. Elite Prodigy says, notice that they can't start a war like they want unless the people approve it. And that's the sad thing about this reality, is they have to have our consent. And they get it through deception. But the truth is always out there. And this is the weird thing about the reality of good and evil, is that the enemy has certain rules. He has to allow us to find the truth. That's why they can never take away all the Bibles, for instance. But it's the truth has to be found. And it's a matter of the heart. It's like, where is your heart? And I believe that that's tied into humility. It's tied into love of God. It's tied into learning lessons. For me, it was, I kept hitting my head up against a wall in my life. And I finally said, I'm tired of hitting my head against a wall. And the devil said, okay, we can give you all these other different options to address your head hitting the wall. Or you can dig deep and try to find why your head keeps hitting the wall. And I decided, fortunately, to try to find why my head was hitting the wall and then to tell everyone else about it. And so the devil, it's weird. It's like, I think of it this way. You can either get angry and mad and join the enemy and his ways and how he operates, or you can fall into humility and stillness with God. Those are the two options. And basically surrendering is the path. That's the path. But few find that. And it's tied into your makeup. It's tied into your heart. Where is your heart? And we see this all the time on display. Certain people go the wrong direction and they start like getting more aggressive, and I'm going to make more money, and I'm going to, do more things and more of this and more of that, instead of surrendering and realizing, it's all fruitless. It's all a big waste of time. Once you surrender, that's when God starts opening doors for you. People wonder, well, why doesn't God talk to me? Why don't I get to see this or that? Or why don't I hear God when I pray? It's because you haven't surrendered yet. You haven't been still and know these God. You still have things in your life that come up before God. I was one of those people until I finally woke up. And that's the difference. And that's the fork in the road, quite literally. That is at the point in your life where you can go either back into the world or with God. I mean, talk about surrendering. And surrendering is a step-by-step process. It's basically walking off the field one by one. First you walk off the football field, then you walk off the baseball field, then you walk out of the stadium, the mixed martial arts stadium. And each of these fields represents something in your life that you thought was really important, that you thought was something you needed, that the devil can use to control you. And then when you walk off the field and you don't play anymore, the devil loses, God wins. When you walk off the field, God gives you an open door. And he says, okay, you turned your back on those false gods. And now I can deal with you. Now I can work with you. Now I can give you true abundance. Yesterday, I hopped in my car, my little Jetsons car. I drove down along the river, the trees, as they're letting out all this water out of this dam. And it's low. Like you guys saw lake videos of the place out on the lake where the river, or it was a lake. Well, now it's like a little river. It's very narrow now. They've drained this entire lake, and it fills this valley. And sometimes I'm over at the property and I'm like, I have to like pinch myself. I'm like, am I already in heaven? This is weird. Like, it feels like I'm on another planet. And of course, it's not really heaven, but it's just weird. There's no crime out here. There's People are generally nice. And even if they weren't nice to me, I would understand them because they speak only French. And I'm driving along this river as they're draining this dam, which eventually is going to get blown up. They're going to blow up this dam. They're going to basically explode it with explosives. That's going to happen in the fall. And then all of the salmon are going to come back because they're going to basically take down all. There's two dams on this Saloon River, and this they have pictures of just going back even to World War II of abundant salmon. They used to swim up this river, and of course they've all but gone extinct because of the dams. But once they release these dams and explode these dams, this is going to be abundant again. And so I'm driving along this thing, just fascinated at the greenery and the foliage and all the diversity of life and all the diversity of the flowers. And I went below the lowest dam and I got out of my car and I parked the car near the bridge that I fished at. And I'm going to have to get some footage of this. I can't even explain it in words. These old bridges, like 400-year-old bridges. It's like I'm in a storybook. And sometimes I just sit there and I just stare. And I'm just like, wow, this is it. How did I get to this point? Well, it's because I surrendered. I stopped fighting for my kids' affection. I stopped fighting for their custody. I stopped hating my ex-wife. I stopped thinking that a career meant everything and I wanted to feel important to other people in a career. I stopped thinking I needed to own a home to feel important, or have a cool car to feel important, or have the cool girl to feel important. I just surrendered. I said, it's yours, God. I don't care anymore. All I care about is telling the truth. And that's when it all fell into place. And I don't know if I'm going to be here forever, but guess what? I feel like I'm able to rest. I do more work now than I've ever done in my entire life, but it's real work. And I find myself just getting lost. Sometimes I'll be behind the lawnmower just pushing, and just all of a sudden the lawn's done. I'm like, how did that happen? You just get lost in your own thoughts. And it's all good. And I think this is what Christ meant by being in this world but not part of it. You don't walk on their fields. You don't play ball in their arenas. And then all of a sudden, God can bless you with abundance in ways you could have never imagined. So I'm going along this river and I'm like, okay, I want to try to get as close to this lower dam as possible, because the way fish work that come from the ocean and migrate up these rivers is these dams create barriers. So here I am between the ocean, which has no barrier, of course, a wide open ocean, Le Mont Saint Michel Bay, to this first dam barrier. And I find a road that can get me kind of close. I get out of the car and I start walking through this field. And I swear to you, there were about 500 different kinds of flowers in this field. And I'm walking along the edge of this field in the river with the cows. You can hear them eating the grass and the flowers, and the river's flowing. And I come upon this clearing and I see a man and his daughter across, they're on the other side of the river. And they've got fishing poles, and his fishing poles starting to like go haywire. Something's on the line. You can't make this stuff up. And I kicked myself because I didn't have my camera. And I watched this guy pull in a 4-foot long something, I didn't find out later till what it was. He pulled out an eel. It was a 4 foot long silver eel. I was fascinated. I was like, that's unbelievable. So I watch and he pulls this thing out and it's slithering all around and his daughter's going nuts. She looked like she was about 8 years old, 7 years old, and she's screaming and jumping up and down. And later I would find out that this was a very rare eel and that they're actually almost extinct. But in France, they allow you to continue to catch these eel because apparently they're kind of hard to catch. And I read about the migration of this silver eel. It's actually that's only the silver. It being silver is only one stage of this eel's life process because it starts out in breeding grounds near Cuba. The Sargassian Sea is this giant current of sargass weed, I guess they call it seaweed, that floats around in a giant circle out near the Bermuda Triangle and goes up and around kind of near the eastern seaboard of the US and down through Cuba. And it's just out in the middle of the ocean. And apparently, these near Cuba and Puerto Rico are the breeding grounds for these eel that make their way all the way back across the Atlantic Ocean up until this little river where I live now. And it's amazing. So basically, this thing had grown up, and sadly, it being silver is the last part of its journey before it goes back to the open ocean to then cross the Atlantic Ocean back to Cuba to then spawn and breed. So when this guy caught this eel as a silver eel, it had not spawned and bred. They grow up to basically maturity in the rivers of England and France and Spain. And then once they get to the silver size, they go back out across the open ocean, and that's just before they're going to spawn, and then they die. So unfortunately, this guy caught an eel that was very, very rare. So this is some of the stuff that I got to experience just a couple days ago. So then I kept walking along this river toward this lower electric dam, right? Which is kind of like a small electric dam. It's not like the electric dams that we see in the States. And I finally get up to this area where there's an electric fence, and I could have gone through it, but behind the fence was a bull. And he's hanging out with his cows, and he's got horns, and he didn't look too happy. So that was the end of the road for me. So I never made it up below this lower electric dam. And then on my way back, I had a sneeze attack. I hadn't really had allergies until a couple days ago. And I had a really bad sneeze attack, and I had to pretty much hightail it back to my car and go home. But it was an amazing and pleasant experience. What saddened me is how few people would see this as heaven on earth. How few people want to walk this walk that I'm walking for fears that they have, fears of not being able to go see a movie at a movie theater, fears of being around a bunch of people that don't speak your language, fears of, wow, well, what if that doesn't last forever? Then what am I going to do? I've interrupted my cycle. I've interrupted, there's everyone's living in fear, and it prevents them from true happiness. And then they complain about their life when they've got open doors, they've got ways out of their misery, but they fail to take them. So, thought I would share that moment with you guys. Then for a minute, I thought about, oh, maybe I'll fish for eels because that'd be fun. This thing was massive; it was 4 feet long. First, I thought it was what they call lamprey eel. So I was like, I didn't know what that was. It was long and big. And I looked up lampreys, and lampreys are much smaller, and they have like teeth. They're actually disgusting looking creatures. And I'm like, no, because the range, the size on a lamprey is just over a foot, maybe a foot and a half long. That's about as big as they get. So it was because I couldn't really see because this guy was all the way across the river. And then I finally figured it out. It was a silver eel, which again is very rare. They're on the endangered species list almost. They're like right on the border of the endangered species. In fact, a lot of them in England, they're illegal to catch. You have to release them if you catch one by accident. And there's actually a black market for these eels. And they're basically for Asia, China, I think even Japan. And so there's people that actually try to basically ship these and smuggle these needle eels. Before they become silver eels, they're like needle-like. They're very small and they're see-through and they're in the open ocean. And so what people do is they go in the open ocean, they catch these, and then they grow them in farms, and then they ship them off to Asia. Let me pull up some pictures of this. You guys can see this because pictures are always better, right? Life cycle eel Sargassian Sea. Apologize for not pulling these pictures up earlier because, okay, here it is here. Sargasso Sea is what it's called. So this is it right here. This is what he caught. Simply amazing. I mean, I was just in shock. Then when I got back to the house and I started actually looking at this thing and what it actually was, I was shocked. So it's on the threatened list, critically endangered. There was a 95% reduction in the populations, possibly even 98% due to overfishing, because a lot of these are being shipped out to Asia. They're basically being smuggled because it's illegal to catch them in most of these countries, especially England. And which was part of the reason why I decided not to fish for them. Another part was that basically they're very slimy and there's all this processing you have to do to eat them. And I was like, that's disgusting. Now, believe it or not, these eels have scales. Some people are like, oh, that's an unclean fish. Actually, they have scales embedded under their skin and they have fins. So technically, they're a legal fish to eat in God's book. Here are the glass eels. So this is what they have captured. They fish for these with nets, and then they raise them in farms, and then they ship them off to Asia. Apparently, pound for pound, they are more valuable than cocaine. Now you know the problem. So here's the life cycle. The eggs, this is in the Sargasso Sea near Cuba and Puerto Rico. They grow into these like leaf-like, then they turn into a glass eel, which is like this, then an elver, and then a yellow eel, so they turn into yellow color, then they turn into a silver eel just before they spawn back in the Sargasso Sea. So what that guy caught was the silver one. It was massive. Here are the fisheries over the years, as you can see, declining. So I don't know if that interests some people, but that's what I got to experience while I was here. Pretty amazing stuff. Anyway, so you wonder, is this secret continent somewhere out in the Sargasso Sea? Who knows, you guys? There are shipping lanes, and that's pretty much where all the ships go. They don't veer off the shipping lanes, okay? So it's imaginable there's large areas of the ocean that are unexplored. Oh yeah, these can actually walk. Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, these eels can walk across land. European eel walks across land. That was another interesting thing. They can actually stay out of the water for up to 48 hours because they have these specially modified lungs. Okay. Here's one right here. This is pretty amazing. So when you see some of these eels out in the ocean, this is where they came from. They actually spawn in these rivers. Okay. Walking across land. They look like snakes or serpents or something. It's bizarre. So hopefully these rivers are a microcosm for God, right? Right now, these eels and some of these unclean fish, have kind of taken over these rivers. These serpent-like creatures have taken over the rivers when the rivers are dammed up. The dams are kind of like an analogy for the control that we all experience in this reality. Okay, we put our money in banks, just like the banks of the river, right? And the current flows, and that's the currency. So the currency is inside the banks. You see how all this fits together? These people are fascinated with water. Why? Because the Most High is fascinated with water, baptism. So they have to have their evil counterpart. So they take nature and they make these analogies. So you have the currency in the banks. Everyone's storing up all their treasure inside the banks. But then the bank fails and you get a flood. And so basically, what you have is these serpents taking over the currency, which is exactly what's happened. So imagine that this dollar sign is really like an eel. And I hate to use the eel because I think he's a clean fish. We're using the eel because he is like a snake. Okay, that's what he's serpentine, right? So here's our eels in the river of the currency. All right. You can't make this stuff up, you guys. And so what you have is the bright side, the light side version of this without all the dams in place. The dams are like the glass ceilings that prevent us from reaching the source, right, of the river. What is the source of the river called? I don't know, but that probably means something too. The spring is usually where or the white snow, which is like heaven. That's where the source of these rivers is, right? The white snow of heaven. So we're prevented from swimming upstream into the white source of heaven or the spring, the infinite waters, the well of Christ. Okay? We're prevented from getting there because these serpents are all in the rivers. They control the river and the flow, and they put up dams and barriers to deceive us. Who are we? We're like the salmon. Okay? So that's the bright side version of it. But the salmon can't get upstream to the snow because of all the serpents and the barriers. So that's interesting, isn't it? And so this river, them removing these dams is kind of an analogy for, wow, it's kind of like my life. It's kind of like probably your life if you're here on this channel listening to this right now. The barriers are coming down so that you can see the source more clearly. Now, other people can see the source, but they're surrounded by serpents. Many people want these serpents. They live their life for these serpents. They fish for these serpents. But others of us ignore the serpents. And all that we want to do is get past the barriers so we can see the snow more clearly, so we can see heaven, keep our eyes fixed on heaven. And a salmon is like Solomon. Isn't that interesting? All right. What else do we have here? Go back in the chat. All right, guys, I think I'm going to pop off of here. I just wanted to chat with you guys for a bit. I'm going to see if I can get this channel fixed. I really like to do live streams over here. And I will catch you guys on the flip side. Take care and be safe, everybody.